خبرنگاران رو مستقیما تهدید به مرگ میکنن.
One difference between the current conflict in Syria and the previous wars in the region is that the enemies of the Syrian government are trying to intimidate independent reporters. In other words, they have targeted press freedom by sending direct threats to reporters like Maya Nasser and Hossein Mortaza, whose word does not correspond to their wills. And their threats have occasionally resulted in the killing of reporters like in the case of Maya Nasser.
3 cents of every dollar that they're paying in taxes is going to the military. It's an astonishing figure. There's an enormous amount of money being blown on war and killing and destruction. But
well, break this down a little bit. You know, how much money, where's it going?
Well, look, there's a $3 trillion 2011 budget proposal. It'll probably go a little higher, but they always do. But, you know, so let's round it up, $3 trillion that is being proposed for the next year. And of that includes a direct Pentagon budget request of $717 billion at this point. That'll also rise, as it always does. There's a proposal for $158 billion. They call it contingency fund for the two wars, but that'll rise. Then you got $40 billion in black box intelligence funding that doesn't get written in the budget, but really
what is that?
They never tell us how much they spend on the CIA and the NSA and the DIA and all these different intelligence activities, which are all war related. But a couple of years ago, there was an error in testimony in the Congress that leaked that the black budget on intelligence was $37 billion. But I suspect that it's probably closer to 50 or 60 billion, because if you think about it, the CIA is basically running the Predator operation in Pakistan, and that's got to be hugely expensive. So, you know, I suspect that the intelligence budget is probably much more than the $40 billion I gave it. Then you got another almost $100 billion in non-Department of Defense military spending. And that includes things like the military portion of NASA, military spending by the State Department. Remember, they hire all those military contractors to guard their embassy operation in Iraq and their embassy operation in Afghanistan and so on. It's pretty huge. Then you've got the Homeland Security budget that is largely military, and then the VA, $123 billion in veterans benefits for the damaged goods from all our wars. And finally, there's $400 billion in interest on the debt to pay for our prior wars. And that's just the interest. So that all adds up to $1.6 trillion.
$1.6 trillion? And sort of like, how does that compare to the recent health care bill? Like, what's the...
Oh, the recent health care bill was $1 trillion for 10 years, over 10 years. But we're talking about $1.6 trillion in 1 year.
$1.6 trillion. So we could have...
Yeah, exactly. Next time you hear that the government needs to cut funds for providing medical care to the children of laid-off workers, or that supplemental unemployment funds are running out, next time you hear that federal funds that are needed to fund extra teachers at your school are being cut, or that Social Security benefits need to be cut back, or retirement age needs to be increased to 70, next time you hear your local post office has to be shut down for lack of funds, next time you hear that Medicare benefits need to be reduced, think about that 53% of your tax payment that's going to finance the most enormous war machine the world has ever known. And that's the truth.
Hello everyone, welcome to GGN. Today is Friday, September 28th, 2012. I'm Darko. My website is ggnonline.com, and on YouTube, ddarko2012 and ddarko2013. Alright, so we're talking about money and paying for these wars and stuff like that. And kind of interesting that I found this this video that came up, because a lot of these articles are about funding their own little proxy wars, funding terrorists and that. You know, I'm talking about Syria. £8 million more for UK money for Syrian insurgents. The British government has announced that it will back up insurgents in Syria with a further £8 million and another attempt to force basically a regime change. The decision came as the British Prime Minister David Cameron urged other members of the international community to get involved with the unrest in Syria while speaking at the United Nations General Assembly in New York on Wednesday, 26th of September. The U.S. is announcing their own aid for Syrian citizens, and it's actually new aid, more. So, United States unveils $45 million in new aid to Syria to meet the growing humanitarian crisis. No, they're not getting their regime change. So, who's paying for it? Are these guys paying for it? The big corporations that are making a lot of money? A study showing that companies paid more to CEOs than in U.S. taxes. 26 big U.S. companies paid their CEOs more last year than they paid the federal government in tax, according to a study released Thursday by a think tank. It says the study blasted rules allowing unlimited deductions for CEO performance-based pay, like many stock options. It said the 5 biggest performance payers among the 26 companies took 232 million of these deductions last year. Finishing up with this article, among the kingpins that criticized CEO James McNerney of the military-industrial complex faction of Boeing, it said he got 18.4 million in pay last year, while his company received a tax refund of 605 million. So you remember this video, where do 53% of your tax dollars go? Well, it goes to the military-industrial complex. So there's people like a friend of mine who could lose his job here in November, and what he tells me is that they're not even telling the postal workers that this is probably going to happen, that a lot of them are going to lose their jobs, so they can't even go out and start looking for something else. It says U.S. Postal Service to default on second $5 billion payment. But they're going to announce $45 million in aid for regime change in Syria. And what about the other tax dollars? Well, it says $1.4 billion spent on the Obama family or dynasty in 2012. British taxpayers only spent $57 million on the royal family. If you think about it, he is kind of like royalty, right? Because good chance he's probably related to these people like all the rest of them. And he's bowed to the Queen, and he's bowed to Saudi princes and stuff like that. So that makes sense. France sends aid in cash to rebel-held Syrian cities, sources say. This is from September 6th, but I thought I included in there with this report. Because like everything else, you have from the 26th of this month, French unemployment tops 3 million as economy struggles. The number of unemployed people in France has topped 3 million for the first time since 1999. So they're breaking records, decade-old records of unemployment. People without work, but spend millions of dollars on arming the insurgents. I guess they're expecting the rich to pay for it because if the poor don't have jobs, who's going to pay for it? Well, it says here, France unveils temporary 75% super rich tax rate. So the crazy thing is they're going to tax the super rich, right? These are people making over 1 million euros. That isn't super rich. I've mentioned this many times before. The super rich are the fuckers that are CEOs and don't pay anything, and these big companies that are considered people, these corporations. I don't consider someone that makes $1 million a super fucking rich person because of all the taxes. Again, they're going to have to pay 50% of that back to the state, which will then go towards the fucking terrorists to do regime changes so the big corporations can go in there and get contracts for oil and whatever else to exploit the resources. So I guess Johnny Depp is actually going to be leaving there. So they do have a fear of an exodus, and they're going to be doing what? They're going to be taxing the rich, the quote rich, right? Not the super rich, not the powers that be that run the shit. They're going to tax the people that have the money to invest, to create jobs, and businesses, to get those people that are unemployed employed. And somehow this is supposed to be a socialist, right? A socialist leftist that's doing, quote, conservative belt tightening. This doesn't make any sense, does it? You can say, oh, but it's redistribution of wealth. That's leftist. Oh, give me a effing break. That is like, if you believe in that there's like these, just neoconservatives and communists and socialists, dude, it all comes from the top, man. And this country is spearheading things like Sarkozy was in Libya. They're doing the same thing as they are in Syria. So it's about war. So it's not about lovey-dovey redistribution of wealth to the poor. In fact, it's getting worse over there. They're actually starting to expel Muslims, and they're putting out of the cartoons. They're inciting this stuff. So it's real kind of neocon stuff. But France public debt exceeds 90% of its GDP. So that's nice, isn't it? France's public debt exceeds 90% of what it's actually producing, goods and services. Syrian-Americans, who's going to pay for that? People that aren't even born yet. So I was covering about how one of the Free Syrian Army commanders actually left. and crossed over and went back to the Syrian government forces, the regular army, so defected. So things are changing. The tide is changing, and the international community that wants this regime change, wants Assad out, they're doing whatever they can. Back the attack, get war bonds, whatever. Text messages are warning Syrian rebels. I thought this was actually kind of funny. I sent text messages to mobile phones across Syria with a warning to the rebels: game over. Syrian-Americans offer weapons channel to rebels. The challenge for Syria's revolution, or the Western Zionist-backed regime change, is to identify and support the terrorists whose goal is another type of corporatist system. One of Syria's richest men to help fund the Syrian terrorist army says here the richest opponent, Firas Talas, has pledged his fortune to the regime change, promising to fund the terrorists along with humanitarian aid, i.e. drones, and declaring a humanitarian corridor so they can bomb civilians, and an organization or a mob or a terrorist organization to deal with the chaos after the regime change. Syria terrorists are getting tactical help from Toronto IT specialists. Behind-the-scenes armchair military strategists from U.S. and Canada crowdsource they strategize with the Free Syrian Army in its mission to topple the regime. It says most of them are based in the U.S. and they're helping the terrorists by providing everything from real-time satellite imagery analysis to communications equipment. Canadian Premier Harper skips United Nations General Assembly to get a Jewish award. So Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper has come under fire for skipping the 67th session of the UN General Assembly to attend a private ceremony where he received an award from a Jewish-sponsored organization. Now, was it an anti-Zionist award like Ahmadinejad received in 2007? No, it's from the New York-based Appeal of Conscience Foundation, the ACF award from former U.S. Secretary State Henry Kissinger. On the subject of Canada, I have to include this, even though it doesn't fit this report. It says here they're pulling in Canada a website that links with questionable sex advice after complaints. Toronto District School Board is again under fire for providing allegedly inappropriate material to children after links on the TDSB website pointed to explicit material that offers instructions to various sex acts. It goes on, it says the website positive.org is part of a coalition for positive sexuality, a self-described grassroots, in quotes, non-for-profit activist organization. Goes on, it says that under the section titled Pro-Sex on the website, a list of sex acts are listed for viewers under the website. It says here, there's lots of safe and fun ways to get off, which you probably won't learn in school. You can do many of these things all by yourself as well as with others, and you can talk about them even if you don't want to do them. It says one of the examples includes the use of vegetables. So good job, Canada. It says here, killing of journalists Maya Nasser, which we were talking about, with the CEO of Press TV was talking about in the beginning of this video, in Damascus, possibly tied to his investigation into Turkey war crimes. So the killing of the journalist is possibly tied to his investigation. Earlier this month, the Workers' Party Turkey filed criminal charges for the Turkish government's support of the Free Syrian Army and related terrorist groups. Only days prior to his assassination, where he was hit by a sniper, he says here he entered into an ad hoc investigative alliance into alleged war crimes and humanitarian rights violations of the Turkish government with leading members of the Workers' Party Turkey. U.S. removes officially the MKO Mujahideen, or MEK, from its blacklist of terrorist organizations. So it's now official. They are no longer terrorists. They are free rebels spreading democracy for the Western Empire. Russia says West destabilizes Arab states and is fueling the Syrian crisis. But this is big news. They're saying that Russia will not grant asylum to Syrian President Lavrov, and a lot of people in the comment boards are a little dismayed by this. They're not going to back him at all. Putin gives Chavez, though, an El Russo, the puppy. So Vladimir Putin has sent a black Russian terrier puppy to his Venezuelan counterpart, Hugo Chavez, who joked that the Russian strongman would receive a capybara, the world's largest rodent, in return. And then Mugabe of Zimbabwe says Gaddafi's killing as tragic as death of U.S. envoy to Libya. The president said the mission was strictly to protect civilians, but it turned out that there was a brutal hunt of Gaddafi and his family, as we in spirit join the United States in condemning that death. And the embassy is talking about, shall the United States also join us in condemning that barbaric death of the head of state of Libya, Gaddafi? But they won't. Obama defends false 9/11 narrative and absolves U.S. and Israel of guilt for Middle East chaos in bizarre UN speech. disregarding the illegal U.S. occupations of Muslim countries. Thank you.